Hey, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all had a great day so far. Today we're going to talk about Shimmers, like we just heard. And Shimmers is the side project that I've been spending my nights and weekends on for the past few months, maybe up to a year. It's been quite a while, and it's also been quite a journey, which I hope to make you a part of today. Now, we're all builders in this room, presumably, so I assume everybody has that side project in the back of their head that they've never gotten around to doing. And if after this presentation you're just a percent closer to picking it up and running with it, I'll call that a successful presentation. Because with the AI tools that we know and love, it's easier than ever as a single developer, a one-man army, to build something end-to-end and to deploy it to the world. At the same time, the expectations of users have never been higher, and the regulations by things like the EU and the app stores have never been more stringent. So we'll explore that double-edged sword today. Quickly, agenda, Shimmer's origin story, then we'll move into the build, how scope creep came crashing down on my project, and then finally, launch day and lessons learned. So actually, this whole ordeal started back in 2020, almost 5 years ago. It was a wild time in AI history. Some of you might remember. But GPT-2 was the hottest model around. And what was very common for people to do is train GPT-2 on Trump tweets and have it talk just like Trump. And so that's what I did. And I found it, like many other people, super interesting. Not just the content of the speech, but also the style. Captured the style of Trump perfectly. So what I used to do is give it some prompts and then ask my friend, hey, who's this sound like? And then I trained it on Tyrion, a Lannister from Game of Thrones. And I asked him, hey, who's this sound like? And that kind of evolved into the idea for a game. And the game had 3 steps, and it still has these 3 steps, core steps. One is you meet some unknown famous person. It could be Aletta Jacobs, and it could be Genghis Khan, anybody. Then, through some clever questioning and guessing, it is your task to figure out who they are. So you could ask, for example, what is your key achievement in life? And the answer would be painting the Mona Lisa. And then you would say, yeah, that's not Da Vinci. You're right. Yeah, but that's not a picture of Da Vinci. Maybe for next time, need to change that. Anyway, then you guess their name, and that's like a full flow of the game. And that's what Shimmers was. An important detail as well is these people that you don't know, they're called Shimmers. So it's like the Pokemon concept where Pokemon are called Pokemon. These are Shimmers. So, sounded good, so I immediately started building. And it was possible back in the day to get free GPU time from Google Colab. I'm not sure if it's still possible. But using that, I fine-tuned these GPT-2 models on large corpuses of text. So for Tyrion, for example, I would use Game of Thrones transcripts and only Tyrion's lines. For Trump, I used his tweets, etc. So it was a lot of work, to be honest, and it worked kind of. And I put it online on I put it in the cloud on EFS, so like a network file share, and put an API gateway in front of it or an application load balancer, and it all worked very slowly. You would get a message back after 40 seconds that kind of answered your question, but it was very, very narrow and specific what you had to do to the model to get that behavior. So, not perfect. But then I showed it to my friend, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. And he took the link that I gave him, and he started sharing it to other people. And so I was like, wow, we really have something here. The customer's taking the product out of my hands. This is what you want. But then life happened. And ended up in the valley of abandonment with all the other great ideas of social networks and stuff like that. So some time passed by, and then, of course, the great AI revolution happened. OpenAI brought out ChatGPT and the OpenAI API. And at the same time, generating imagery was really advanced super quickly. And so these 2 things took away a lot of my problems, because I was trying the OpenAI API and the quality was better, the response time was much better, it was kind of cheap as well, and I didn't have to host it myself. And also, I didn't have to fine-tune models. So that was huge. And for Midjourney, I'm a developer. I've been so for quite a while. I've been an Android developer before this. Art was always a major problem. My apps looked like developer apps, basically. Midjourney could make things look really cool. So we're going to explore these two details as well in the build. So I decided now this time to really, I was going to go for it. I was going to finish this one. And I set some tenets for myself, some ideas to use during the build. I called it LLM-driven development. The idea was I was going to outsource absolutely everything to ChatGPT. Not recommended in your normal day-to-day job, but for me, it's fine. I was just going to test it. And the idea was to try out some cool new tech and release as soon as possible and then iterate. Remember that one, we will see it later. So I set up a high-level design meeting with my partner, ChatGPT. And soon enough, the initial tech stack was there. These are some AWS icons. I won't go into it too much here. But basically, the architecture was way easier to maintain. It was super cheap. This all cost nothing to run, literally zero if there are 0 requests. So it was perfect. So I got cracking away, prompting ChatGPT thousands of times and hitting that limit, the daily or hourly limit, many times. And I came up with a few ideas for making this work the best way. And I called them tenets of developing without thought. So the idea was that you're able to sit on the couch next to your girlfriend, prompt ChatGPT, and at the end of the workday, you could still be efficient. Because I used to develop this in the evening, in the weekends, when my brain was already fried. And this stuff helped. So the first one was be absolutely committed to outsourcing this problem. So prompt until ChatGPT or Claude, in this case, which I use now, gets it right. So instead of just taking a little piece of the output and putting it into your own code base, making it work that way, you can do that, but my goal was to have it do absolutely everything for me. Second, insert the entire context into your prompts. There was a talk earlier here today about contextual AI. I won't go into that much more deeply, but the idea is that you become empathetic with the model. Think about what the model knows and what it doesn't know, and it doesn't know anything about your domain. So you have to be very specific about every little piece of your specific domain and give that to the model. Third, let the LLM be architect and developer. So tell it first on a high level, what are we going to do? And then the implementation steps. And the last two, generalize and compartmentalize and testing. Because this works best if you can get quick feedback on whether the code that the LLM built actually works. And this works best for visual stuff because the side effects are usually minor if you're just making some Flutter front-end stuff. If you're making something super high risk, then I definitely do not recommend this approach. But after going through these tenets of developing without thought, I did come to a realization that you're actually thinking about your problem deeply and trying to summarize it well for the AI. So a little paradox there. Anyway, didn't take much time and the initial backend was done. But now it was time for the good stuff, or I guess what the users would see as the good stuff, the imagery. Taming Midjourney. Because it's super easy these days to generate an image. I'm sure every one of you has done it. DALL-E is one option. Midjourney, still, Bing, everything has an image service now. But for an app that needs lots of art, and Shimmers has like 600 images right now, hand-picked, then you need to find a way to make these things consistent. And so there's two main type of images, I would say. The unknown image, where you don't know who you're talking to, and the revealed image. And so these are persons. Jeanne d'Arc, and we'll see a few others lately in a second. So the unknown image sounds easier than it really was. Because at the start I was like, I have Jon Snow. I want an unrecognizable image of Jon Snow. It's not very unrecognizable. So I quickly ditched that idea and I made it more generic. a monochromatic silhouette, genderless, indiscernible. But then it got real creepy. So I tried to uncreepy it and say, hey, it's a hooded man in a simple green landscape. Kind of super creepy. I think it's trained on the Nazgul too much. But yeah, so it turned out that hooded man is a very strong keyword that will always make it creepy. And so finding these driving keywords for steering an image entirely, that turned out to be very useful in the long term as well. So just silhouette, that was exactly what I was going for. And then a synthwave aesthetic, if you will. There's multiple keywords that will really steer your image into one direction, like 8-bit. If you add 8-bit, you'll get an 8-bit image. But also like golden age painter style, then that's what it will go for. And synthwave is another kind of this purpley, retro, outlandish look that I really liked. And so I applied that to my revealed persons too. This is Medusa, of course. But the problem was still consistency. How do you keep consistency within the app, but also between different shimmers? Because the idea was to have multiple Medusas, some common and some rare. And needed to be immersive, of course. Like I said, these driving keywords and uncovering those was an important step. But also the image-to-image function. So let's say you want to generate an image of Spartacus, which is a historical person. Then if you just ask Midjourney to create that image, then it will always go for the actor who played Spartacus in some series or movie. And I wanted to avoid that. So I used a different kind of image, or I just kept it very similar, very general, like a Roman man. And I used an image to create another image. And it could go even further, which is I usually used to create one image of Gandhi in this example. And then to create different rarities, I submitted the created image and then only said like just a very minor switch, not green, but purple and blue and red. And this way, it could be pretty consistent. If you look at it long enough, you'll definitely spot that these guys are different. But for my adventure, this was more than enough. Beyond the images, assets can also be created by Midjourney, which was also always a great pain for me, creating assets, creating buttons, stuff like that. Some keywords here are sprite or game icon. And then if you take that image and apply some of your own magic, you can get by as an indie developer quite quickly. It's been talked about a lot in the media though, but these models do have a certain bias that you need to be aware of. So here's a prompt of Florence Nightingale. Who knows that? Who knows that person? Yeah, nice. This is a photo. When you ask Midjourney to create an image of her, she looks like this. So it's kind of different. And so I had to find a way to get that perfection out of the Midjourney bias, like perfect lips and facial structure. And many iterations of image-to-image transitions usually got there. But the first attempts were pretty bad. Another example, Yuri Gagarin, I wanted to include, which is a Russian cosmonaut. But try to get an image of a cosmonaut by Midjourney and you will fail, because they will all have this American flag. It was literally impossible. Even when I submitted an image of a cosmonaut, totally no American flags there, they would always insert it. So many more biases, but it's just good to be aware of. And then finally, to go really next level, and this is not in the app yet, it might be in the future, you can use things like image to video afterwards to make the image move, or at least subtly make the background move. So it works well, I think, for Gandhi. Do you guys see it? Yeah, see it. Super subtle. Super subtle. I thought that was really cool to implement in the app. But ran some POCs and it doesn't always work as expected. Sometimes it gets real unsubtle. Yeah. Experimental. I think Gen 3 is out now, so maybe it's better. I haven't tried yet. It also gets expensive, this image to video stuff. So if you have to implement it for 400 shimmers, I will need some funding. So, MVP done. Now you could open up the app, imagery was okay, you could talk to a person, they would talk back, you could guess their name, and you could save them in this temporal codex. So, time to release, right? Time to bring the app to the market. Maybe not, because this is when scope creep came crashing down. You think like in big corporations they have scope creep. You're dealing with a product owner or I don't know project manager, but here I'm all on my own. There's no scope creep, right? But yeah, there was because the different sides of me wanted different stuff. So first of all, copyright was kind of a thing. I wanted to create at first things like Jack Sparrow, things like Jon Snow. But I talked to a lawyer friend of me, Laura, actually, Wijnand knows. And she said, man, you're going to get sued instantly if you do this. And thinking about it more, I agreed with her. So now I only use people from the open domain, not even Obama, actually, because he's still alive. So I made some rules for myself to hopefully kind of get out of that situation. Thing is, if you only look at the open domain, your options get really limited. There's not that many people. And that's when I also came up with this idea of rarities, that you have multiple Merlins, and they also have different emotions. So one is grumpy, one is joyful, cynical, and there's some other super cool emotions that you'll have to download the app for and check out. Second one is App Store and Play Store requirements. So back in the day when I used to develop, it was fine to just be a developer and release something. Now you needed a website. All right, so my architecture got expanded by a website. Didn't take long. It's an ugly website, shimmers.app. Check it out. But it worked. Anyway, let's move on. Let's release. Monetization. I was really afraid when building this app that thousands of people would come flooding in, download my app, and I would go broke overnight. So I needed to fix monetization. And I thought about this, and at some point I decided that there should be a free version. There should also be a paid version. So let's make a subscription model. And that took way longer than I thought. Still a lot of work in 2024. And I also included ads because, otherwise free people would bankrupt me. So I implemented ads and subscription model. So this got bigger again. And also implemented revenue cat, which for the subscription maintenance, I would say. But now that I was letting people subscribe, I was like, I feel uncomfortable now not having authentication. I need to have some names tied to these users who are actually paying me. I should add accounts at this point. I mean, so I again implemented like a login screen. Social logins as well, because some friends I showed it were like, yeah, you should have social logins. Okay, sure. So I implemented that as well. So this thing got bigger. I wrote a blog about it at some point. So now at this point we are months along, and technology was catching up with me. You have AWS Bedrock, which lets you like choose different models. And I always looked at OpenAI and the authentication method as like a sore thumb and wanted to get away from it. So I decided, the techie in me decided, you know what, let's spend some time to migrate to Bedrock and use Claude 3.5 Haiku, which I think is a really nice option for this app. But as you can imagine, it did take quite a while. And it's starting to get a bit out of hand here. I also wrote a blog about it. Then the EU came around, and apparently you need to do lots of stuff these days to comply with GDPR. Because now, of course, I was authenticating users. They were logging in. I had their user information. So yeah, that was kind of bad. I had to have somebody make privacy and terms of usage policies. I had to have a delete me page on the website and a button inside the app for single users to be able to delete all their data. And of course, in the back end, you need to be able to handle that correctly. So that was a ton of work. Next one, my girlfriend is an avid mobile gamer. Of course, I show her the app all the time, and she was like, man, that feeling you get in games when you push a button or you get something, a dopamine-inducing sound, you should implement sounds. So that's what I did. More people I showed it to didn't understand the concept. Let's build a tutorial. Then I was almost ready. I was almost ready to release, and I found out about getting featured on the App Store. So there's just this form you have to fill out, some stuff you have to submit. But they do say you have to do it at least 1 month ahead of releasing your app. So I filled in the form, waited 1.5 months, and they didn't get back to me. But yeah, another 1.5 months gone. In that 1.5 months, I did build something cool because my initial beta users were complaining and saying, "Oh, this app is really cool, but it's got a few questions that are wildly overpowered. Like, what is your greatest achievement is one, or what are you known for? These kinds of questions. The LLM will almost always give away key information, and that would kind of make it too easy. So I built an AI-based creativity judge. So first you would query 3.5 haiku, and then a stronger model, like GPT-4, would come in and look at these questions that the user asked and ask, is this a creative question? Should the model actually answer? And then if it gave it a grade of 5 or lower, then the LLM would completely dodge the question. So I implemented that, and the creativity judging function didn't work quite right because, for example, if your first question is, what is your greatest achievement? Yeah, the LLM will think, wow, that's kind of a deep question. That's a good question. And the second one as well, what are you known for? It didn't necessarily look at these as similar questions. What is your favorite color? Maybe I think they would find that bad. And what is your name as well? But I remember this vividly, that this last question was to the LLM less creative than the first one. So it didn't work that well. But I thought, like, creativity is relative. So what I built was every question the user asked is saved. And then a random set of these questions is given to the LLM, and then it decides, is this actually a creative question or not? And it worked a little bit better. So for the hardest shimmers, this is now implemented, and if you keep asking the same question, you will lose. So the months started ticking away. I just wanted to launch, basically. And at some point, I was completely done, and I said, you know what? I went to a Starbucks store, and I clicked launch. Finally, I was like, this has to be over with, and I launched the app. And then there was basically silence until I showed it to social media, friends, family, and the responses were really nice. Everybody really liked the app. It was a feel-good app. People also played it. I had my first real customers, so that was super cool to see from different countries. I had paid subscribers. Luckily, it all worked. I was really, really surprised by that. But yeah, revenue cat, good stuff. I got into some App Store lists, which were super cool. And then finally, I was making money. Not a lot, but I was making money. But I was happy that the cash flow was positive. And we're talking cents here, but yeah, daily. Sometimes people were really playing a lot, and my ad costs my ad gains were higher than the API costs. So that was cool to see. But that was also a goal I had in make a cash flow positive app based on these paid LLMs. And finally, I was developing against the clock because I didn't actually build an end game screen. I didn't believe that people would go through the full app all the way to the end, catch all shimmers. But one single friend of mine was really playing all day long, and just every time he got new shimmers, I saw the number go up. So I quickly built an end game screen just for him. So the launch gone well. And then, yeah, I thought maybe it's time for some more features. So I built some more features. I built a progression system and a few other things. Though maybe it would have been time for marketing instead. And I did try some marketing later, and I found out that, man, this is actually a big deal. People have SEO jobs and stuff. So I tried some marketing on Reddit, for example. But I did find out that even though you're all here today, there is a little bit of AI fatigue in the community. So I posted on Reddit, a few subreddits, like, hey, I made this app. And some users commented like, is it built using AI? And I said, yeah, it would be impossible without AI. And the single response was just, yeah, then I'm not interested. So the indie developers, they're not really into AI, which I kind of get. But yeah, that was tough to see. But then I also took a break, which was nice, to look back on what I did to create this presentation and give it to you here today. So let's talk about the lessons learned. Launch early and iterate. If I didn't add this authentication stuff, for example, I wouldn't have had to deal so much with GDPR. Could have kept it anonymous, not saved anything. That would have been much easier. And actually, probably if I could go back, I would do it back in 2020 in a very crappy way. And I think the users would have been fine with it because ChatGPT wasn't even out then. That was a good time. It would have been very expensive to run, but who knows? Start marketing during development. This is a big one. If I were to do it over, I would, every step of the way, try and get some users engaged and not in a big bang at the end. I think that's a big mistake. Next one is the building side project is easier than ever, to me at least, and releasing them might not be. I think you guys all might agree with me on that one after this presentation, at least for Shimmers it was. But lastly, and that's the most important one, of course, is the sense of gratitude that you get for building such a side project. And yeah, I don't know, the personal growth you experience when you're in your day job usually, or for me at least, working with large customers, big companies, sometimes slow processes, and then here you are the sole responsible person and you're able to build something end to end. And that's very energizing. And so, finally, what's next for Shimmers? I think I'll build some more features. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. That's it.